Hello, pop culture connoisseurs. Do you gain a dark sense of peace when the guilty are punished by a violent vigilante? If so, maybe you should get some therapy, and then subscribe to Punisher Body Count, the net's best podcast concerning all things Frank Castle. I'm Dane Lamont. My co-host Jake Williams and I cover the good, the bad, and the hilarious on the Punisher comics, movies, and news. Do you like chummy co-host banter? We got that. You need to get your fucking
No, you need to
man.
fucking pay attention to the fucking movie.
You want kick-ass guest interviews? How about Mike Barron and Tom Jane?
No, I like a little bit of grit in my cigar.
You want carefully considered in-depth analysis?
I mean, yeah, just won Best Picture at the Oscars yesterday. I mean, it's no Terminator. It was still,
Good luck with that. Punisher Body Count, twice a month on Geekcast Radio.
Welcome to The Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with a rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag, which has become the Punisher Bag. This is episode 45, and I am your host, TFG and Mike. Joining me is Ryan the Uneven Flow. Hello, how are you?
Good, you.
Good. Finally found a place to live. Yay!
That's not important. Just ask the people in the street. Oh, wait.
You ass. And also joining us once again is the Punisher Body Count crew of Jake and Dane. Hey, guys.
Hey, man, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good,
Konnichiwa.
Yes.
Wow,
and
we're international now.
Yeah, apparently
Hi,
so.
Genki desu ka?
Yeah. It's Viet Cong all over again.
That was
Jake?
in Born.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I said it. All right, we are here to start Greg Rucka's run, which is the Punisher volumes 1 through 3, and enter Warzone, because that's what it says on the damn cover.
And technically, it's Punisher Volume 3, 1 to 3, I believe, if I remember the full title, right?
No, actually, I think it's like volume 560.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
Probably.
No, the volumes are in the double digits at this point. For
Yeah.
the Punisher, for the straight-up Punisher, no adjective or Warzone title. This is around volume 9 or 10.
By the way, I forgot to mention this to you guys as Punisher fans, but I wanted to point this out. We have an upcoming, there's 2 Comic-Cons now in Ottawa, which is pretty awesome.
Wow.
The second one is in December, called the Pop Expo. One of the guest artists, noted Punisher artist extraordinaire, Howard Chaykin. Everyone's favorite.
Oh, dude, you know what's amazing is I was getting ready to be excited, and then you said that to me, and I still said, wow. It was in the chamber, and I feel like I just wasted a wow. Thank you.
Myself, and the other huge Punisher fan here, also named Ryan, oddly enough. Anyway, the 2 of us have agreed we're not going anywhere near him because we're worried we'll punch him in the face.
You know what?
I want someone to start some beef with him. Just be like, hey, the guys over at Punisher Body Count, they say your art's shit, man. What do you got to say about that? I want to get a huge war going on between us and Howard Chaykin.
I'm sure he's got good art because he don't work as long and on as many titles as he does. But my God, Max issue 50, if you're going to have somebody do the 50th issue of Punisher Max, have Leonardo Fernandez or have anybody else. Yeah, to me, Parlov or Fernandez are the perfect ones because they're the ones that worked the most and did the best work on it overall. Yeah. But to have your guest artist as Chaykin, what?
Hey, I got an idea. How about you get an artist that remembers how many fingers the black guy has? Barracuda, fucking villain!
To be fair, he looked more like a refrigerator than anything Romita Sr. ever drew.
Yeah.
He's a big black refrigerator.
Actually, the only way they could have fucked that up worse is if they would have had Rob Liefeld guest artist on that one.
Who was the
that
artist?
That would be amazing. I would enjoy it just for the novelty.
Who was the artist on Fraction's War Journal run?
The artist on Fraction's War Journal run. Oh
By the way,
goodness.
this is how much
Goodness.
I hate that
It
run.
was
I can't even remember
it was
anymore.
Oliver something.
Yeah.
Olivetti.
I don't know. Yeah, that's right. That was pretty bad too. Not a fan.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I
Okay,
like his
so
art.
speaking of good things, we're here to talk about
Great,
Rucka's
fine.
run.
Yeah, and speaking of great art, how about that Marco Cicchetto in that Volume 1 of Rucka's Punisher?
Yeah. That's
How's that for bringing it back around?
Yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
we'll start with some of the high points. We'll certainly get to the low points.
Just
The
so
low
I
point. The low point's going to be the summary, which is going to be pretty easy. And yeah, listen, I mean, I love this book, but yeah, not a lot happens in. It reads so much better in trades than it did in individual issues.
it
Yeah,
certainly does.
I mean, they were double shipping it the first, like, 4 issues or something like that, and it still felt like the story took forever to take off. You know?
Yeah, this for the listeners at home. This is a comic book series where in one issue is just about Punisher fighting a flying Birdman, and then the next issue is him recovering for 90 days. That
The
this
third,
is
the third Vulture, who was
Yeah.
killed by Frank, which is awesome.
yeah, they actually let him kill the guy. Very nice of them. And actually,
He has
Rucka
stayed
talked
dead
about
too.
that. Yeah, Rucka talked about that with us. We actually got to interview the writer of this.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Well, I know, but yeah, maybe the other listeners don't. Sorry.
The other listeners might not know, Ryan. We know.
Sorry.
You know, speaking of the listeners not knowing things, I think we're doing them a disservice if Dane doesn't do his third Vulture Smeagol impression. Can you go ahead and break them off some of that, Dane?
Oh, dude, what was funny is I was rereading this and it just came back to me while I was doing it. Like, how much? I said, I needs my precious mob money, Punisher. My skill. I can't do it right now.
I lost my monies.
So basically, this third Vulture is supposed to be something out of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, he's-
Basically.
No, like when we reviewed this on the episode or one of our previous shows, Dane was like, "This Vulture sounds like Smeagol from Lord of the Rings," and he just busted out this impression that was hilarious.
There's two things I can't stand. It's hobbitses and vigilantes.
All right.
So you hate the Punisher then, right?
So
Yes.
No, he meant the Never mind. Anyway, all right.
No.
To summarize very quickly, because this isn't
Yeah.
going to be tough. Rachel Cole Alves is getting married. Her entire wedding procession is killed on their wedding day, gunned down by a
Totally
group.
Kill Bill style too.
Yeah, by a group called the Exchange, and they are then in turn targeted by the Punisher. And yeah, they send the Vulture after Frank, and that's really about it. There's a lot of side characters, which, by the way, it's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I know I've mentioned before, but more than anyone, and I would say even Ennis, Rucka did a really good job of tying Frank into the Marvel Universe without him being a huge portion of it, to the point that the problem with the Punisher has always been he goes around and he murders tons of people, and a lot of people have to ask, why wouldn't the Avengers or somebody get involved at some point? In this, Rucka does a good job of keeping him low key, but he's still offing people like crazy.
Yeah, and he's dealing with a threat that you could understand why the Avengers aren't necessarily going after them, because the Exchange, the general gist of the Exchange is that it's basically the minions of other terrorist groups, and even a few people from S.H.I.E.L.D. getting tired of, getting abused by their superiors, so they go and create their own gang, and it's going to have blackjack and hookers. And
Bender.
and benefits.
yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and I liked the use of the different Spider-Man characters. I mean, Nora Jones is still in Spectacular Spider-Man pretty much every
Nora Jones was amazing. I mean, she was probably by far my favorite side character in this whole run.
And yeah, we've got this sort of Gotham Central style of having two cops, Newsom and Bolt, or Morgan Freeman and Ozzy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Detective Freeman. But their story, if Rucka's run had concluded the way it was supposed to, I think their story would have been a lot better. But the fact that it was rushed and they ended up like jammed to the side hurt overall.
Yeah.
I did like the idea of Ozzy being an actual cop who's competent, unlike Soap, pairing up with
Oh.
the Punisher. I liked that idea. I really liked the time sort of delay Rucka did in having, we see what he told people happened at the shooting where one of his original partners was killed. We see what he tells them, and then we see the actual panels of what actually happened, which was, Frank came in and killed everyone precisely and quickly for him at a school.
And I really like that because that one worked on me on two levels. Because this was almost kind of like a reboot comic, you almost see this as like a first appearance of the Punisher, even though they tend to back away from that later on. Because, yeah, you had Detective Bolt, who was working with a corrupt cop, and, this thing's about to go down, and then the Punisher just appears out of nowhere, takes the gun from Bolt, and then pops out of the corner, guns a-blazing, and...
He loses, he gets shot in the hand and just shrugs it off, too.
Oh, yeah.
It was grazed. It just got grazed.
Yeah, but still, most guys, that actually hurts. He just sort of
They
ignores
at
it.
least say fuck and shake it off or something.
Yeah, he just puts the gun in the other hand and just starts shooting them. That was one other thing that Rucka did really well, and there's a really good reference to it in the 11th issue of the comic, that this Frank is way more calculating and precise than the last group of 616 Punishers.
Yeah.
Remender and Fraction, I never got the idea that he was a professional.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah, he was often just a very determined guy that would blunder through
and
situations.
He was always outclassed. They never showed him, in control of things.
Yeah, this Punisher definitely is, like, they always make it clear, like, it's not a matter of if he's going to come after you, it's when. And they make that clear in issue 1 and 2, where in issue 1, Frank lets a criminal go that was at the scene of the crime of Rachel's wedding. Yeah. And he lets that guy go just to simply track the man and kill anyone that man meets and work his way up the ladder.
Which works really well.
Yeah, it did. It very much did.
Yeah,
I love the art in this. I love the style of how the interrogation went, or the whole thing. The
flashback scenes
scenes. I love how that worked. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what I liked about the Fraction Hawkeye stuff.
I liked
some of those. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, I liked how cold and yet, like I said, in control he was. I loved in issue 11, there's the line, Bolt is telling the story of how the Punisher started gunning down these zombies that came back. And the cops are interrogating him, saying, like, what were you doing? And Bolt basically says, like, well, it's hard firing your weapon, in those sort of circumstances. And they go, the Punisher, oh, I bet the Punisher had no problems, right? And Bolt makes it clear that the Punisher doesn't have problems shooting, not because he doesn't care about other people or casualties. Bolt makes it clear to them that the Punisher is shooting because he never misses, and he's just that good at everything.
Yeah, that's a very necessary element to the Punisher that can be almost as out of this world as a radioactive spider biting you, or some scientist injecting you with roids and you just stop aging and you grow really strong. Like,
or radiation turns you into a green monster.
Yeah, whatever. Like, as much as people go, I like the Punisher because he doesn't have any of that fantasy bullshit. I'd go, yeah, he just uses C4 in a populated city and no one innocent ever dies. But like, that's the part. As long as they put it in a way that makes sense, you're often able to suspend your disbelief and move on. But that is what they make very clear that in the comic book, especially during Rucka's run. It's almost like an investigation on how can a person like this possibly exist, and can this person possibly be replicated, like through Rachel, who is a fellow Marine and had a similar tragedy happen in her life.
And I liked that part of the run. It's something that most authors haven't taken a look at. I feel like Aaron sort of did. Aaron tried to look at what creates a man like the Punisher who can go out and just murder and kill over and over again. And Rucka's sort of trying to do that, but of course you got to be a little nicer in this Marvel universe. I should note too. Oh, go ahead.
I gotta disagree. I don't think he ever approaches the question of how Frank can be the Punisher, and he pretty much said as much with our interview with him.
He doesn't approach it with Frank, but he approaches it with other people.
True. And for Frank, he's moved beyond that question, and it's now like, how do you keep being the Punisher?
Well, there's the line that'll be in the third trade about, Rachel telling him, I guess I couldn't be like you. And he looks at her, and he's very self-aware because he tells her no one should be like me. Like, he knows what he is, and he knows what he can do, but he also knows that that's not really for anyone else.
Yeah, and in other comics, have gone on well before this run ever started. Like, a fun fact about Frank Castle is that he was actually raised Catholic, and under some runs, he was before he joined the military.
He was a priest, yeah.
Yeah, he was straight up
Priest Castiglione.
Yeah, priest.
Sorry, it was Father Castiglione. Yeah.
Yeah, he stopped. He left seminary because he had massive problems with the idea of forgiveness on, like, the universal forgiveness God can give out as long as people really mean it and they give themselves over to God. It's like, what, all forgiveness? I don't think so. Check, please.
Well, sometimes he'd like to get his hands on God.
Yeah, sometimes. I stubbed my toe today. I know that feeling.
But one of the other...
I love the art in this. Yeah. I love the way the art is fantastic. There's a page, I think it's still in issue 1, where they're coming after Liam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's basically, Frank with the gun blazing, and it's just amazing art. It's because it's an all red background, and of course he's in all black as usual. And that's another thing I like about this, and we'll get to this next week. I like some of the costume changes that they do in the run.
Yeah, Rucka's painted on skull was kind of neat. I shouldn't say Rucka's, Chichetto's.
Yeah, it was very Punisher 2004, but in a way that no one was complaining. The other thing is, since we keep coming back to the art, is that Jake and I often had a running joke of saying, like, oh, God, we're handsome. Like, we actually... Like, a lot of us were laughing at how handsome Marco Cicchetto drew Frank and all this. Like, he got 20 years older, got some Guido-style hair gel, and just looked so kawaii ugu. But over time, we actually started... But then we actually realized, no, everyone's kind of drawn kind of beautiful. But that doesn't lessen the violence or the action or the composition of the pages. It's done very well. And
I expect it was partially intentional, but who knows?
Yeah. No, it's just part of Cicchetto's style. And what's amazing is we've gone from making fun of that to that Marco Cicchetto is coming back on a Superior Spider-Man team-up issue, and the Punisher's teaming up with Dr. Octopus Spider-Man or whatever. And we're all like, oh my God, Handsome Frank's coming back. Like, we're fucking psyched about it now.
I mean, I love Cicchetto's work. I especially love the way he draws his women, where he can make them attractive without having to give them torpedo boobs or anything like
Steve
that.
Dillon.
Or, those high hip G-strings that Jim Lee does. I think it was kind of jarring at first to see Frank look that handsome. But I don't know, Cicchetto's style really... grew on me, along with, wasn't it Hollingsworth that did the colors?
Yeah.
His coloring is amazing, and I don't know, to make a long story short, I love Cicchetto, and he is now on my list of artists that I want to get some original art from.
Yeah.
It should be noted, too, you mentioned women in the comic. I cannot...
Nora Winters was hot.
That, too, but I cannot remember, too... Is this one of the few... It's one of the very few times I can remember 616 Frank gunning down a woman.
No, he's done it a couple times. He has no problems with it.
Yeah.
He has, but it's rarely shown sort of this much. And I liked the fact that she sort of thought, like, well, he won't shoot a woman, and then he just shoots her in the back when she's running away, too.
Well, when you run what amounts to a human slavery ring, I don't
Yeah.
think your gender plays much account
Yeah.
into what's going to happen to you.
And I love her defense in a foreign language. Oh, I just shot him up with cocaine.
Yeah. I'm
How
just
am
the
I the bad
middleman.
guy? Yeah.
Although, of course, the slavers showed what Mac's version of Frank does. So
Yeah, and you definitely get the feeling of the Max Frank, at least his personality, in this, because he is very much a force of nature, and a tornado doesn't give a shit what gender you are. The
Yeah.
tornado's going to do what it's going to do. That was definitely Frank's modus operandi in this series.
Another good thing I wanted to mention too briefly is in the trade for this. It should be noted, I really liked that they included Rucka's Spider Island short story.
Yeah, that was cool.
Which, by the way, I actually really liked, or at least I thought it was really funny.
What was that? I've never seen this. I've only collected the comics.
You should definitely pick up the trade. It's a short story. If you don't know what Spider Island was, basically everybody on the island of Manhattan got Spider-Man's powers.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
some of them, did good. Some of them did bad. Well, this is a story about a bunch of bad ones. It's a bunch of guys robbing a bank in Spider-Man outfits. And they're all robbing the bank. Everything's going well. They web up everybody. They're taking the money out. But everybody's in the vault. And 3 of the 4 start feeling this weird pain in their stomach. And they start discussing it like, it's this weird feeling. Yeah, like when, in your gut, something's going
so
wrong.
It's the spider sense, basically.
Yeah, and so the 4th guy, they ask him, like, hey, Gordo, are you feeling it? And he just says no, as he pulls a gun out, and he shoots the other 3 in the head. And as he's tearing off the Spider-Man costume, all it reveals is a white skull underneath, and all he says is, it's called Spider Sense, idiots.
That's pretty good.
I liked it. Yeah, it was very. He just calmly shoots each of them in the head.
Yeah, that is pretty good. Gave me a chuckle.
Yeah,
So it's a solid story. If you get the
Volume
chance to
1,
read it through.
all 5 issues in Volume 1 were solid. I mean, I enjoyed all of it. The art,
All
the
right.
story.
Well, how about we get to the bad then? Which for me, that last issue can just take a middle finger.
Well, okay. Well, before you get to the bad, I want to talk one more good thing up real quick.
All right.
My absolute favorite issue in this first 5 issues in the trade is issue 2, where he fights the Vulture.
It's issue 3.
Oh,
actually.
it's issue 3. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That is fucking badass. Like that issue is what Frank is all about.
I like how he climbs up him with a knife, basically.
Yeah. Well, he never gives up. He never resigns himself. Is like, all right, I'm fucked. Time to make peace or whatever. He's just like
die and keeps going.
Yeah, he's just like, fuck it. I got a K-bar still. I'm going to climb up this bitch and stab him to death.
Yep.
And I don't care that I'm 500 feet above New York City. Fuck it.
Yeah.
And of course, he survives and he just goes back to what he does.
Yeah, I mean, not without having a compound fracture of the knee, but,
Yeah,
whatever.
he does the Dark Knight Rises solution. Just put a brace on it and it'll fix everything. I'm okay now.
Well, to be fair, he does get help, which I really liked at the veterinary clinic, that he manages to off some more people.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Like, he's stitching himself up, from this fight with the Vulture, and he hears some commotion outside, and apparently pod dealers are arguing over whose corner it is. And this is great because the guy's like, this is our corner. You got that? You hear me? It's our corner. And then Frank's like 5x5 and then shoots him in the face, which shows Rucka's excellent military lingo because 5x5 means like loud and clear.
I also wanted to quickly comment on the good side. The awesome art and the use of the flashback when Nora is writing about the Punisher who survives, the fall and fight with the Vulture.
Yeah.
But when she's writing about Rachel, we get this really cool sequence of first it's the Punisher in like the classic garb with the white gloves. That is an awesome panel. And then we get the sort of military one where he's using, a flamethrower and burning 2 people alive. I just liked that. It was a nice touch. It was cool to see him in the classic outfits. Like, they hadn't forgotten about it, at least.
Yes. And that's the thing, is that even though this really did seem like a fresh start, or at least spiritually,
which they had
for the
to,
Punisher,
thanks to Remender.
Yeah. And here's the thing. What was even great about it, or I don't know, bad, depending on how much you love continuity, is that all of the plot threads and issues brought up by Remender are just swept under the table. Because
Yeah,
Rucka
these aren't the droids you're looking for.
yeah, Rucka just swept all this mess off the table. Because one of the things in the Remender run that I truly feel they were trying to deal with is this guy really a Vietnam vet? Maybe we should deal with that. And here's the thing: if you are a Punisher fan, the thing you don't like, there's two things you don't talk about in Fight Club. One is you don't talk about Frank's age. Two, you don't fucking talk about Frank's age because it's just this mess of a situation. So Remender tried to give it like, well, what if we made a magic, like we killed him and we brought it back through magic, and then his age doesn't even fucking matter anymore. And then Rucka just said like, how about he was just a guy that maybe fought in Iraq, like that. Once again, like. Rucka does that, and he just takes out any magical solution.
Yeah, and to his credits, I mean, Rucka never necessarily makes it 100% clear. I mean, yes, the uniforms are modern, and so therefore you would assume. But having said that, he doesn't flat out say it, at least, which I think is fine.
I think what they've needed to do all along, and apparently there has been talk of this, is they just need to have this defining war in the Marvel Universe, something that they can constantly fudge around what time period it was in, and then they can just say, oh, Tony Stark got the shrapnel in that war, and Punisher was in that war, and
it was the Onslaught saga. Everyone loved that, right?
Yeah.
I'm still scarred by that.
The funniest thing for me in the Volume 1 trade was actually, I believe it's issue 4, when Ben and Nora are meeting, and Ryan, I'm sure, and I'm sure the other guys can correct me if I'm wrong as well, because I don't read Daredevil. I don't. It's not that I don't want to. I never have.
Look. Here's a Daredevil issue. Okay.
Hold on. Okay. Wait a second.
No, I feel.
Here's the thing with Daredevil. The only thing I really know is I know a lot of people hate this, but I know the movie. And I know what Urich did in the movie or what he didn't do. So as soon as I see this in this issue with him and Nora in the diner or wherever they are, I'm like, oh, hell, that's awesome right there. Just referencing it. About not revealing who...
Yeah, he knows who Matt Murdock is. Although everybody sort of knows. I mean, Frank...
Yeah.
They make it clear in the Omega effect. Frank pretty much knows who Daredevil is as well.
Yeah. Like the world knows who he is, but then Daredevil, Matt Murdock was able to kind of put that under wraps, but most everyone believes like, no, you're fucking Daredevil. We just can't.
It's kind of like O.J. Simpson. Everyone knows he killed his wife, but it's not really official.
But he went to prison.
Ryan, what do you not like about the comic?
I mean, that's an awful analogy, but it works.
Yeah. Anyway, for what I didn't like, the last issue for one needs to get mentioned. All right, if you're gonna do an issue of Frank recovering, then focus and expand on everybody else a little more. The sort of subplot with the stupid kid
that goes nowhere.
There was no point. Nowhere. It ends. It ends with a period. Oh, you're no soldier, and the kid walks. Yeah,
when the kid figures out who he is. Yes, although it's pretty obvious who he is. What with the skull. Yeah.
Well, he wasn't wearing it in the beginning. The kid found it.
Yeah, the kid finds it, but I mean, there was no reason for it. It was not something that was needed. And in all honesty, you could pretty much just take out the issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Rucka was trying to show there is, because he's mentioned this in interviews, he mentioned it talking to us, is that he really wanted to highlight both Frank being a very tactical person, but still being a mortal human being in the Marvel Universe and what that means. Like just dealing with a fucking joke of a villain, like the Vulture #3. He gets his eye damaged. He gets a glass in his shoulder. He breaks his knee, and he's out of commission for 100 days. That he makes that very clear, and I think he was trying to use that comic to show the passage of time. Though having that kid there, I don't know, it didn't bother me, but yeah, probably could have used the real estate there. Probably could have gotten
as slow paced as this comic was. It really suffered by going even slower.
I feel like that was the issue that for a lot of people who were on the fence or already thought it was really slow, I think it's easy to point to that one as, the tipping point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
here's
off
the
Saying
thing.
now, are you guys saying it was slow because of when it was in singles?
Yes.
it was
Well,
slow in
because-
singles, man.
Let me put
Okay,
it this way. Let me put it this
I
way.
get it.
Let me put it.
Most stuff is monthly release anyway. But I gotta say, reading the collected edition, this read really fast.
It reads great
Yeah.
in trades.
Actually, let me put it this way, okay? I am one of the world's slowest readers, okay? Even the newest comics that come out take me 20 to 30 minutes to read, and I know most people takes like 10 minutes tops, okay? I read all 12 issues an hour and a half ago, just all the way straight through, and I'm seriously one of the world's slowest readers. So what does that tell you? How decompressed they are and how
It
fast?
tells you that I put a strict schedule on you and that you were lazy enough to wait to the last minute. That's what it says.
I read these
I'm
days
just like
in
you,
advance.
Mike. I read all the comics right before the show.
Yeah, I know. What were you gonna say, Dane?
I read these days in advance.
No,
I read
I
my
don't
Punisher
mind reading
comics
them
so
hours
much
in
that I
advance.
don't have
I
to.
can't. I've tried reading comics days in advance of recording a show, and I'll go back for a refresh, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I know that. Why am I looking at this again? And I just can't do that. I have to read all the stuff day of
I
recording.
like it to be
Yeah.
a little more fresh. I feel my commentary is a little bit better.
Yeah.
I pick like an extra day or two because I actually do try and pick out like witty observations, even go as far as write out jokes for certain parts of it. But then I do refresh the day before. I mean, the day of. Yeah.
The only sort of plot point, too, looking back, that I wanted to mention from this book is at the end, during those days of recovery, a bunch of the exchange are gunned down in cold blood, and Frank is still recovering. We, as the readers, know that, but, the people...
The people in the universe don't know that.
Yeah. But even then, the cops immediately suspect Rachel, who, by the way, we, as the readers, know it's her.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually,
she is
no,
started.
they don't suspect them. They're just like, oh, the Punisher's back.
Oh, that's
The-
right. Yeah, in this
The
issue, they don't.
suspicion isn't thrown on her until the next trade.
It's the next trade. Yeah, it's the start of the next. Yeah, and the next one too. It opens with Frank killing somebody in broad daylight in a restaurant, which, by the way, is awesome. I just like the comments from people like, "Oh my god!" and some people are worried if he's there for them.
Yeah.
Man,
The one thing that
what
always
maniacs.
Yeah, the one thing that always bugs me is when Marvel or because DC does it too.
Both sides do it.
Everybody has to have at some point or another a Nick Fury homage.
Okay.
It really bugs me because every time I see someone with an eye patch or bandages over an eye in comics, it makes me think of Fury. And I'm sorry, Punisher would never be in charge of Shield.
Oh, okay.
Actually, you were
More of a
here for that discussion. Actually, he was eventually sort of going to have his own.
Well, we
squad.
see that clearly came to pass.
And that was the idea, was that he sort of was going to be Fury for a while. He was going to have his own squad led by he, and Rachel would sort of be the leader of them. He would sort of take on the big cases.
Yeah.
But of course that never never happened. The Fury thing was intentional, though. The other reason for it too was to kind of ground him.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but like Ryan said earlier about the Spider-Island story, I love that.
Yeah, that was a nice touch, and it reads really well. It was.
Yeah,
it's
I
another
didn't
one of those.
expect-
It shows the strength of Rucka's writing when he can do stuff like that. It's just unfortunate that there wasn't more of it, or there was too much throwaway stuff in his run.
Yeah.
Although, having said that, I mean, I still love this trade. It reads so much better than the individual issues did, which I still have every single issue.
I would recommend, if anyone wants to pick this up, you either got to pick it up in trade, or you need to pick up like a bunch of the issues all and read them all in one
pick
sitting.
it up in trade. It's much cheaper to pick it up in trade.
Well, I mean, you could probably find a bunch of these books like in the quarter box at cons.
Yeah,
and
the
stuff
bright
like
side,
that.
the bright side of comics right now is they're all, unless it's a #1 from an indie company, they're all worthless. So you can get them cheap.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. And some
free fall,
people just
bitches.
still, and some people still like individual issues. So I'm just saying, for those people, I would recommend getting a bunch of them and sitting and reading them all in one sitting, don't try to collect one here and there and try to read it. I would not recommend that.
So I guess overall, like our biggest complaint, everyone's biggest complaint here, especially really the three of us who read the issues, is that it was slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
It's funny. Yeah, and the one guy who didn't read the issues doesn't have that problem. Which
Well, excuse
no,
me.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it's kind of proof that this reads so much better in trade.
And I am the guy that gives the writer the benefit of the doubt with decompression. And I did it with Rucka too. And overall, it was a very satisfying experience. But it almost was like, oh my God, they're still on Planet Namek. When is this going to stop? When is this going to stop?
And no, I mean, it's a fair, like, I loved Rucka's run overall.
Yeah.
To spoil my later thoughts. I love his work. I loved this run of The Punisher, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, even I, to the people that say, like, it was too slow, I don't have an argument for that. There's no real defense. It was. And I guess the only defense would be to tell those same people, you know what, take all your issues you have of it and read them all at once and then tell me how it reads.
One thing Ryan didn't mention about the Spider-Island story is the title of it, Your Friendly Neighborhood Punisher in Tingling.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with final thoughts and ratings after this.
Thanks, Punisher. We really appreciate this.
We're nothing but white blood cells, hunting the infection called crime. A sickness that sneaks in through the cracks. The way that Brussels sprouts sneak onto a plate of delicious macaroni and cheese. Sure, the city looks safe. Just push the Brussels sprouts to one side, right? Rawr! No matter where you put them, their vile vegetable juices corrupt the whole plate. Oh. I'm out here to keep those stinking sprouts off the mac and cheese. Keep them from leaving the store in the first place.
Anyone else have any bright ideas?
We are back here in the pull bag. All right, Greg Rucka's The Punisher Volume 1. Ryan, what do you give it?
This is tough for me. I would probably normally give this a 4 out of 5, but just having an issue that's almost a throwaway hurts it. Being somebody that read this in individual issues hurts it a little too. So in the end, I'm just going to give it the liked it, which is 3.5 out of 5, which is still a really good rating, obviously. But I don't know. I loved Rucka's run, but this was a little slow.
What about you, Jake?
I was originally going to give it a 4.5 or 4.5 stars. But then, I don't know, Ryan talking about the throwaway issue.
Oh, great. I've talked everyone into lower ratings.
Well, I'm going to give it a 4. It's awesome. If true Punisher fans are going to love it. It has a lot going for it. The art is spectacular. The writing is great. Getting in the trade, makes up a little bit for the pacing. But the pacing is taking it down half a star for me. And I think Ryan's right. Having that last issue in there, really does kind of hurt it. It makes a slow story even slower. So I think that's going to penalize it another half a star. So I want to give it 4 out of 5.
All right. What about you, Dane?
Yeah, I feel like I'm starting to get better at your rating system the more I'm on this show. So I actually thought about this a little bit, and I said,
I still can't believe you're 1 star out of 5 for Bourne. Oh well.
I know. It was a lot of people. The death threats are still coming in, but I'm thinking about getting a PO box, so that's going to solve itself. But anyway, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 because honestly, I felt like Rucka did an incredible job overall in the run. But if I have to make one part lower than the other, I want to make this a 4 out of 5 because the art is wonderful. It truly, it's fitting and it's unique among even among the various people you'd have under the quote unquote Marvel House style, if there is such a thing. And one of our friends, Arch Stanton, thinks there isn't, but it's wonderful art. It's building on some great character relationships, and it's already asking some great questions about human nature and revenge and how far would you go. Now, like everyone else, I do agree that there were some decompression elements I felt like the pacing could have been set at a better pace, at a better rate. So yeah, 4 out of 5, but my score will only go up from there.
I think for me, I'm also going to give it a 4 out of 5, which is really liked it because...
Man, I had the low one.
Yeah, you did. The reason why is because now that I look back on it, yeah, the kid isn't important, but the kid wasn't that important in Iron Man 3 either, so, I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, fuck that kid in Iron Man 3.
That kid was great.
All right, so the reason why for 4 out of 5 for me is because there are just some things that just, I don't know, the art is great, the story is great. The only reason why it doesn't get a perfect is because I just felt that it kind of went, like Ryan said, the story with the kid really went nowhere. However, Punisher's recovery, quote-unquote recovery time, did feel like, it very much felt like, hey, this is the Punisher on his day off, which is much more interesting than Hawkeye.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So,
all
right.
I don't know how to reply to that.
I mean, I know what he's talking about. I enjoy the Hawkeye series.
Another episode put to a grinding halt by our host.
Shut the hell up. All right, so that's going to do it for us. Join us next week when we continue with Volume 2 from Greg Rucka's Run of the Punisher.
Where more stuff happens.
Yes, more stuff happens, and one of my favorite costume changes happens in that trade. So
I know.
Make your great escape into comics, and we will see you then.
Like a big Cuban cigar after sex.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that is awesome.
You just heard the latest episode of The Pullback, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.